Welcome, everyone, to Bauer's House Podcast, episode 11. And today, my guest is a voice actor with over 22 years of experience. You may recognize his voice as Ryu Hayabusa from Ninja Gaiden, as well as Arthas Menethil from Warcraft. And he's also worked with companies like Starbucks, Comcast, and honestly, that's just to name a few. There's been a lot. So
the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely. So please welcome Justin Gross. Justin, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Justin, I wanted to start off by asking you, what was your inspiration for getting into acting, like back in high school and in college?
Yeah, well, I was involved in theater in high school. That was something I really did enjoy. And I was in most of the shows, and I did drama competitions. I did speech competitions, speech and debate. And I guess I was kind of a nerd in that regard. I really did like doing that kind of stuff and went to competitions all over the state. And when I went to college, I kind of stopped doing all of that. I really did just focus on going to school, and I kind of had lost that theater bug, I guess. And then after I graduated from college, I had moved to Sacramento, and I met up with a theater director there. He actually did a lot of acting classes. His name was Ed Claudio. Ed just passed away in January, unfortunately, but he was a great teacher. So he had this thing called the Actors Workshop, where you could go after work and you do improv, you do scene study. It was great. So it just got me into it again. I just kind of rekindled that passion. And I was doing a show with the Actors Workshop with Ed, and there was a woman that was directing it. Her name's Elizabeth Nunziata. She does a lot of voiceover and a lot of theatrical work in Northern California. And she was so kind. I always credit her with having faith in my abilities when I had none, because she said, you could do voiceover. And when I found out she did voiceover, first of all, I was blown away that anybody made a living doing that, because it really, honestly, it sounded stupid. Like I just didn't get it.
Right.
And the fact that she made a living doing it, I was just so intrigued. And she was kind enough to take me to a studio herself and coach me making a demo. And we made a really good demo. She did a great job helping me. And she didn't charge me anything. She just did it because she's a really awesome, sweet person. And that demo back in the 90s was sort of my ticket in. I started booking little jobs off of that demo in Sacramento. Auto mall spots or local Macy's spots or state government spots. And that's what really got me really started in voiceover. And I decided, after I had a little bit of success there, I was going to move to Los Angeles and, be an actor and really hit it big. People would be very interested in my voice now that I had done some spots in Sacramento. And so I had moved down to LA, and I sent my demos out, my tapes, actual tapes, to casting directors and agents. And can you believe nobody called me back? I was astonished that nobody wanted my velvet voice. So yeah, there I was. I had moved to LA, and I was trying to do on-camera stuff and doing theater, and luckily I had skills. I had teaching credentials by that time. And so I was making a living doing some studio teaching. So I have credentials. I could teach on movie sets. And at that time I was probably the youngest studio teacher, at work. So that it was kind of cool to have like one foot in the business, but I still was very desirous of doing voiceover, and I was having no luck whatsoever. But I've always been very persistent, and I continued to send those demos out regularly. And about 2 years into my stint in Los Angeles, I had seen, we had access, we had illegal access to the breakdown services at that time. And we had a phony management company. So we'd get all the casting calls. At that time, it was coming through on fax machines. So every morning at like 4 in the morning, the fax machine would go up. So one day I saw this Terry Berland casting. They were looking for a voice to do for a Saturn spot. So I sent
Right.
my tape over, and I got a call for that audition. I was shocked, like, oh my God, I got a call. So I went over to Santa Monica, did the audition, and I did terrible, evidently, because she had to correct me like mid. She's, I was doing my announcer voice, and she was like, no, no. She's like, Justin, um, she said, was there a lot of traffic coming in today on the 405? And I said, yeah. I said there was a bit of traffic. It was. She's all, just like that. Do it like that. And I
Oh
was like,
wow.
okay. So I did what she did. I spoke like a normal person, and ended up getting a callback for that job. And long story short, I ended up booking that Saturn commercial. I had no agent, um, and that job led to being the voice of Saturn for about a year. So I was doing everything Saturn, and that job literally changed my life because, back then those were all union spots. I was seeing checks in the mailbox every day for about a year. It was crazy. It had just changed my life completely. And
And that's what led you to buy a house, right?
it is, yeah. I bought a house off of that money in 2001 in North Hollywood. It was a condo. It wasn't like anything fancy, but for somebody like myself, I thought, damn, that's pretty. I'm I'm killing it. You know,
Right? Yeah.
yeah. So it felt good. It felt good because uh, that job led to other jobs. I took all that Saturn work and was cutting a new demo, and I went into a studio there called Dave Sebastian Williams, he was pretty big voiceover guy himself, and he owned a studio, and I went in to have this demo cut there, and he was listening to it, and he's all, who's your agent? And I said, I don't have an agent. He's all, I'm going to take it to my agent. I'm going to tell you, I think he might be interested in you. And so he did. He was so nice. He took it in to the Tischerman, Steve Tischerman, who was a big voiceover agent. He was the agent for Don LaFontaine, who was the big trailer voiceover voice of trailers. Everybody, that's the iconic voiceover guy.
Right.
Yeah, took me to that agency, and they signed me. And so that changed my life. I was just like booking jobs, quite a bit after that. So and that's what led to like doing the video games and getting to do anime. It just like everything kind of exploded from there.
That's amazing. And
Yeah, I was very lucky. Yeah.
well, I would say it's got to be luck, but then also your persistence. Your
Yeah,
persistence in really pushing hard to getting your demo out there, and then also crossing paths with the right people. Like
yeah.
Elizabeth, who really took that time to create that reel for you, and those are key people in your life to meet.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had a lot of serendipitous meetings with people like that. And so um, that's why, throughout the years, anytime anybody's ever approached me about voiceover, I've always made a point to take the time, have a coffee with them, whatever they want. I'm happy to answer any questions. I've never charged anybody I just don't, because those people were so generous to me. I've always been happy to pay it forward and just give people information, whatever they want, even if they're in my voice category. I don't care. I just don't care. I want to help them.
Is that essentially what you did with studio teaching, like paying it forward, right? With like teaching kids to really hone their skills as well, similar to what Elizabeth did, was really helping you out.
Well, with the studio teaching, so that is more like regular school work that I'm doing with the actors on set. And I
Mhm.
will admit that is not necessarily a passion. I enjoy doing it, and on occasion I still do it here and there. But it's not. It's more of a financial decision to take a job like that, or maybe an experience decision because I get to go somewhere cool on their dime.
Right.
So I'm not so altruistic with that. Admittedly, it's more of a like, what can it do for me? In that in that realm. But with the in the world of voiceover, Yeah, I've always been a big fan of just helping people out, give them the information. I've never taught a class. I've never had the desire to make money in that way. It just never felt correct to me. So
Right.
yeah.
And it's funny because last Saturday I had Rebecca Downs on my show who voiced the sorceress in Warcraft 3. And I
That was a,
thought, how funny that I end up getting two people that worked on the same game and lended their voice to it. And we spoke a little bit about what Blizzard was asking for in those like death sounds and like how they would
yeah,
ask you to be like, can you give us a sound of you dying or yeah,
yeah,
what
and over too.
wow, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I mean that's not. It's no joke. I mean, so like, yeah, it's tough. So now sessions are capped at 4 hours would be an extremely long session to do. That's the max that by union contract. At that time, those initial ones were I can't remember if they were four or more, but they were pushing it. And vocally, it's not digging ditches. I know that it's not construction work. You're in a air conditioned booth, but there's something very strenuous about going full throttle vocally for an hour or more. I mean, it is strenuous, and plus it takes a toll on your voice. You
yes,
know,
people who aren't voice actors aren't going to understand that aspect, the
no,
fatigue.
because it sounds ridiculous. Like you're complaining about, oh, I can't do more than 4 hours. It sounds silly, but it's true. It's taxing.
It's funny because I came across a forum posting of these Warcraft fans that were so passionate about your role as Arthas, but it was like split. It was like half the people were really happy for you and defending you, and then you get this other half of people who are like, ah, come on, why couldn't he reprise the role? And they didn't really understand the full scope of that situation as to why you didn't continue the role. But what I thought was funny is you were in that forum. You said, "Hi,
Oh,
I'm the voice actor for Arthas. Let me tell you a thing or two about voice acting." And I thought that was great because you really got to explain to them why you didn't reprise the role and just to give them a little more insight on the situation.
yeah. I mean, and it's been a long time, and it was really just a matter of principle. And that game was very popular,
Yeah.
and when they wanted me to do it again, they were off. It was just like it was sort of a slap in the face, and they were saying like, well, you're really not valuable. We'll offer you this amount. It was less than what they offered the first time, so it was kind of like, fuck you, Blizzard. I don't need that. I mean, that's just, and that was on the advice of my agent too. Like he's like, yeah, why would you do it for less? Don't do it.
Did
So,
Blizzard like tell you was it going to be like less of a role compared to what you had already done? Maybe that was why it was going to be like
well,
less
I don't
money
know. I
or
think Patrick Seitz is the one who took the role after that. So I'm not sure. Like maybe you would know whatever he voiced. I mean, that's what it would have been because that's what they were asking me to do.
yeah, cuz from what I understand Arthas's role was more prominent later on in like World of Warcraft, which was it's a completely different game than uh Warcraft 3 what you were in, what you voiced in. And so yeah, I feel like it wouldn't have come till much later. And but what I'm also wondering is if they did offer you more money, and like, do you think that if you accepted it, would it have changed like the trajectory of your career?
Possibly. I mean, yeah, it's very well, it's very possible that could have happened. And it wasn't that I was asking for more money. I was just asking for the same, per session. And back then they were paying per, session fees.
Right.
So, for to do less for the session just was not a road I was going to go down. And but you're right. You bring up a good point. That could have changed things too. Yeah, I mean, I could have gotten more. I mean, work begets work begets work. So that's kind of how this business rolls. and I am loath to turn down just about anything. I like to work, um, but in that situation, I don't regret it. I mean, my life is pretty good. I didn't, it's not like I'm not destitute. So,
Right.
but yeah, maybe I could have had more uh, game opportunities, and sure,
It would have also led to like panel appearances, and I feel like there
sure.
would have been more pressure almost in a sense because people, as you notice, get really attached to these characters versus you, say, doing a job for Comcast.
Hmm.
It's like it's a different vibe, and
Yep.
honestly, I still have your voice in my head from all the times I played that game. And yeah, that's the thing. It's a definitely a different a completely different vibe. So
Yeah, I think, so the idea of doing panel appearances and stuff like that's that's a nice ego stroke. And that's a very, like, of course, like who doesn't want to be sitting on that panel? And if I'm being honest, from an ego perspective, yeah, it'd be awesome. I'd love to sit up there and have people. But if I guess maybe I got to check myself and be like, it's just not necessary. Like, I don't I don't need that. It's not, maybe it's not good for me. Maybe it's not good for my soul to be in that situation.
yeah,
Um, you know, I mean, I struggle with that, of course. Like, I don't want to be I want to be a good person, and I don't want to, but I always thought of doing those things, sort of like just an ego boost.
right,
Because what am I going to talk about? What am I going to tell you about Arthas? I don't know the game,
right, yeah.
if I'm being,
When you did record your lines for Arthas, for people that don't know, his character becomes evil. He has this change where he's a prince initially, and he's like super noble and everything, and then he just becomes this death knight. So what I'm wondering on the voice acting side of things, did Blizzard give you that direction of, okay, now you have to make your voice more gritty and more, evil sounding?
yeah, yeah, they did. It was, they would go maybe a couple lines at a time, and they'd give you some context for the line, but they didn't. I didn't know the plot. I really didn't know. I mean, more, yes, there was this change in the character, but I didn't know what else was going on. It was really, they were just focused on getting the lines to sound right and correct to them, and then move on, because it's like, it's a job. I mean, it's sort of like factory farming. You got to get the voice talent in and out. You don't want to, you don't need to, I mean, you give them enough to make it good. And I think back then too, like, everybody was, I mean, they were really good. Like, Jason Hayes uh, was the vocal director, I believe, and he was very good. He's a very good director. I really liked working with him.
Yeah,
And but they don't have time to go into the whole story. We had, that chunk of time, and somebody else is coming in when my time is up. So
and Blizzard was a vastly different company at that time. They were a lot
yeah,
smaller than where they are
absolutely,
now. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
um, and it's funny too because I just appreciate that range that voice actors have to really take a character and manipulate it in different ways, because you can tell too the different sides of Arthas. At first he's going like for honor, and then you hear him go like, what is it now? Like you could hear that grittiness in the voice there, but
yeah, yeah. And that's where, you know your acting training does come into play. I mean, it does. Voice acting is, you still rely on those techniques, because you still have to use your imagination. Acting is, being truthful in imaginary circumstances, and that's you still have to do that vocally. And I think working with the Actors Workshop in Sacramento, when I moved to LA, I worked with Playhouse West, and it was all good training. It was all good things to do,
yeah.
because it just kind of keeps you on your toes. And
definitely. And did your father have a hand in your inspiration to wanting to become an actor?
I think, yeah, sure, yeah. Because when I was a kid, my dad would do plays. He did theater, and so I would watch the rehearsals. I would watch the shows. It was really proud of my dad. And uh, I remember I was in mid '80s. He started going to Sacramento to do like on camera stuff, like they were local commercials and local things, and then he would go to San Francisco. So he kept doing more and more. And then by 1991, he'd moved to LA. I mean, he and my parents, they're still together. They never split up. But he moved down there and would come back and forth to Northern California, but he would go down there and try to get acting job. And I think what I also learned was persistence from him, because he really did, like, he started at a payphone calling agents to see if they would be interested in representing him. And so I saw him struggle with that, and just slowly but surely get more and more work. And he's done great. I mean, he's done a lot of work, and he's hit it big with some really awesome commercials. And um, he's been a really, yeah. So seeing that happen was inspirational, and I wanted to do on camera stuff too, but I'm just too I think I'm too self-conscious in that, when a camera is on me or going to auditions, it just never felt comfortable. I think voiceover just felt more natural to me. Like I don't, people aren't looking at me, and uh, it was just easier to do it behind a microphone. It just always felt more comfortable that way. And
Yeah.
that's what took off. The other stuff, I got a few jobs on camera, but nothing of note.
When you did theater, did you feel that sort of like the nerves when you would be on stage?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you just work through it, and it's a good exercise. It makes you braver, bolder, makes you have thicker skin. It's good to do those things. It's good to be scared and push forward and push through, you
Yeah.
know. And so that's where theater is valuable, because it's live and the stakes are high, because you don't want to look like an idiot. And and we humans don't like to do that in front of other people. So it's just good for you. It's like I said, it's good to do things. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny because I was reading your blog and I came across "Just Show Up," and that quote really motivated me a lot when I read it. Um, it made me want to challenge myself. And honestly, podcasting has been a challenge for me. You know, interviewing people, all of this is outside of my comfort zone. But then when I read that, I'm like, you know what? I want to take it a step further. I really enjoyed acting in high school, so I'm going to take an acting class. So I signed
Good.
myself up for an acting class. It's like a 7-week course, and I'm excited to take that. And I have you to thank for that. So
Well, good. That's delightful that I get to, hear about that in this way. So yeah, thank you for telling me that. But that's great. I mean, that's podcasting. You know, I love podcasts. I listen to them when I exercise. I go running. I go for a walk. I've always got a podcast in there, and it's a great medium. And but there's a big C, right? There's a lot of people trying to do that,
right.
much like voiceover, much like there's just, and technology has sort of leveled the playing field and just enabled a lot of people to be able to do these things, which is great, because you can do it uh, on your own time. You can do it. It's previously you couldn't do it. There's no, I mean, nobody. What would you try to do? You try to break into radio. You couldn't, because the pools, or there are too many gatekeepers.
Right.
And
Yes.
nowadays, it's just wider open and more opportunity. But that's where the persistence comes in, because you have to just keep doing it. To be told no, or we're not interested over and over, it'll either beat you up or it'll make you tougher. I mean,
Right.
some people will shrink and quit and just not want to do anymore, but it's the people that keep going. And that's the thing. You have to just keep doing it. Even nobody's interested. I sent demos for 2 years. Honestly, I got no response. Nobody was interested in my demos when I moved to LA, until finally one person was. All it took was that one person to, like, you know, put me on a path. And if I got discouraged and quit after the first year, then none of that would have happened.
Exactly.
I'd be teaching at some school somewhere. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but my life would be just a lot different.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
It makes me think of David Letterman used to tell comedians, you're never gonna make it. He would purposely say that to them, but he did it strategically because he says, the ones who truly are meant for it are not gonna listen to me and are gonna keep pushing and take that harsh criticism and just become something of themselves. So yeah.
Yeah, it's true. Now it'd be real hard to say that to people.
Right, I do not
You can do
recommend
something else.
something like that to that's a pretty harsh way to harsh thing to say to someone, but yeah, it's interesting because you will have people that will take that and will say, okay, you know what, i'm I'm not going to do this anymore, and then you're going to have the
Yeah,
ones that are be like, you know what, I'm going to prove him wrong. So
that's right. That's right. And you know, I've been fired mid session in a job when I first started when I was in Sacramento. Um, it was humiliating because I had been hired to do a job for the Sacramento Metropolitan. Well, no, this is going to be international Sacramento International Airport, and I went into the studio to record this, and there was an old Visa commercial. I had the sound of that announcer in my head, and here I am, a young 20 something, trying to do that sound, and I'm failing at it. And they keep correcting me. They're like, no, just bring it down. Like, we just want your like a younger sounding voice, And but I kept like doing this thing. It was terrible. And so the studio manager, she said, "Hey, can you come see me real quick? I just need to say something to you." Came out of the booth. She sat me down. She's all, um, "They're gonna let you go on this, so I just wanted to just let you know you're done."
wow.
But it was humiliating though. I mean, like being fired on the spot. Like they didn't even say like, yeah, maybe we'll use it. Thanks. It was she just let me know like they're gonna let you go. Um, and that was I remember I went home. I didn't quite cry, but it was probably close because I was just thinking like, God, like I mean, I got fired from a job like this, and I must really suck. Like I suck. And I remember it felt bad, and I probably didn't do voiceover. I didn't even, maybe I stopped for a month or something.
I mean, yeah, that would affect a lot of people. That's not easy. If you do look at it in another way, though, at least they remove the wondering of if you got it or not,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, sure. Yeah, and that's happened too. Like, I've been in a session and everything seemed to go fine, and then you see the spot air and you're like, "Wait, that's not my voice. Just didn't work."
Right.
You get paid, but it's just you don't get that residual, or you're probably not going to work for them again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's got to be tough too because you have to really adapt to what they want. And having that adaptability as an actor, I'm sure takes a lot of time, to hone.
It does. And one of the things, you have to be patient because, there's a lot of times the creative team, you may be working with one person that's the creative director or that's in charge of what you're doing, or you may be with a whole team of people and you've got, 8 to 10 people with feedback and input.
Yeah.
And that can be maddening sometimes. Sometimes, it's happened time and time again. You go into the booth, whether it's a character or a commercial, just doing your regular voice, and I have my approach out of the gate that I think it should be, and then they'll be like, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. You do all these things, and then sometimes you come back full circle, and I feel like, God, we ended up exactly where we started. Like that seemed to be, but I guess it's part of the creative process, and that's, everybody wants to hear something a little different.
Yeah.
Um, and too, nowadays as well, there's so many more people, there's so many more voiceover opportunities out there. You have a lot of inexperienced producers or people who aren't, they don't know what they want either until they hear it. So you may just go round as part of the deal.
I don't know if you use the app TikTok at all, but I've noticed a lot of voice actors are on there, and they like to do these voiceover challenges for anybody to just for them to kind of experience what it's like to do a little bit of voice acting. But I imagine that must get bring a lot of like cringy sort of videos because it's a lot of inexperienced people trying it. But I guess the good thing is it's sort of bringing some positivity to voice acting and voice actors for anybody to just take a shot at it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and that's sort of, it's great and it's not so great, because now, I've seen it since the 90s. I've seen the competition just exponentially explode. There's just so many more people in the game. And so vocally, I'm not a 20 something anymore, but vocally I can still kind of be in that age range. But now, I mean, there are people born 20 years ago that are now in that. So it's almost like a pyramid, and the more I'm progressing in life, the more competition there is, because vocally I may not age. Physically, I mean, I age, but vocally you don't age so much. So now there's just so many more people out there competing. Um, just it makes it tougher. And so yeah, I mean, the TikTok video, I'm not on TikTok. I don't do the only social media I do is LinkedIn. That's it. I
Yeah,
got off Facebook. I'm just not into those. I'm just not into it anymore. So I try not to be a narcissist more than I already am. So um,
I mean, kudos to you for staying away from social media because I just feel like it is there's good things to it, but then also it's like I see the bad sides of it from time to time. You talk about the narcissism of it and everything, and but I try to see the positive of it. Like I mentioned with these voiceover challenges and things like that, because
yeah,
you never know who like that might inspire someone to become a voice actor by doing something small like that. And nowadays it's like there's so many opportunities to do it versus when you started. So
absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot, and yeah, I don't like to discourage anybody who has a desire to try something or do something. I support you to just go do it, go give it a shot. And so yeah, if it does inspire somebody to pursue it, um, yeah, more power to them.
right.
So yeah, the whole social media thing though, that just, I was for a while. I know you said you had read my blog. Unfortunately, I had way more info on that blog, but I lost years of blog entries on there recently.
Oh wow.
And so I was really bummed. It was my fault. I made a mistake in not renewing something, and boom, lost it. But
Mm,
I used to use Facebook as a way to kind of archive um, my work. And then when I decided to get off of it, I lost that. So I just kind of put stuff on YouTube, but really more as an archive. Not I don't promote anything. I'm just not interested. I mean, like, so for work opportunities, people who puts their work out there, that's great, but nobody should, enjoy my Waldorf salad with me. I mean, it's just like, to me, like, that's the height of narcissism.
yeah.
No, nobody who gives a shit. Just
Right.
do, get down to business. And so,
Yeah. Because that's the other thing too is social media is really broadcasting everyone's successes, but not necessarily everyone's failures. And so
yeah,
people are getting this false sense of a lot of people's careers that everything has to be comfort and good in a process, and that's just not the way life works.
that's very true. That's very true. It does give, because, that, like, the little bits of struggle that I've experienced, like if I were just to put it, my highlight reel, my life would look really amazing, right? I'm sure, like, oh, that voiceover, that's pretty easy. But yeah, I mean, it is easy, but I mean, there have been struggles, and there have been, setbacks and whatnot, and that would be very, um, some things would be humiliating to put on social media, and most people wouldn't do that.
Right.
Um, I don't know. It's just, I think it's evolved into something that just, I don't think it's good for the country and the culture. I'm just not into it. I don't want to participate in it. So
Yeah, yeah,
I took a pass a couple of years ago.
I totally understand that. And you went on this bucket list trip to Chicago recently,
Oh yeah.
and that was for a studio teaching experience, or
Yeah, that was a studio teaching job, and it was a 5 month job, and I've I haven't done a job like that since the '90s when I was doing it. You know, I worked for Nickelodeon, and worked on an actual show. But they had asked me if I'd be interested in this 5 month job in Chicago. I've always wanted to experience Chicago in that way. I've only been one other time in my life, and yeah, it was a studio teaching job for a Amazon show called Paper Girls, and it was a fantastic experience to be there because I got a pretty sweet per diem. So I got uh, like a downtown apartment with a view right by the lake and Riverwalk.
the pictures were
Um,
gorgeous. It looked really nice.
oh, it was yeah, it was a great experience. Yeah, I really loved. I mean, it was a lot of work, and I was struggling to keep my voiceover stuff going. So I would do voiceover in my off time. I had there was a walk-in closet there. I put in like blankets. I just like made this like booth in there, but I was able to do gigs. Nobody really knew I was not in my home studio. So
That's
it
amazing.
was a pretty, yeah, it was a pretty good deal. I didn't lose any work from that. And that's always my fear. That's why I don't do, I'm very careful about my side gigs, the other things that I do, because I've always made voiceover the priority. I have to be able to get into my booth when I need to get there.
Right.
So, um, in my regular life, voiceover does not consume 40 hours a week, so it's, I audition every morning. I get up and I go to my booth, get all my auditions done. If I have jobs that day, I get those done. And then I have a good chunk of the day left, I got to do something. So
Right.
I've got, I have a real estate broker's license. So I have a side gig in property management. I've got a couple of my own Airbnbs. I got rental, I got other things that I'm able to do. Um, but all of it, I credit voiceover because it gave me the life that I have now. Um, so I always have this fear of not being productive and not doing things. I think my dad instilled that in me. So that's kind of, why I do those other things to just kind of keep it going. Cause I mean, I can't, like, if I could be done by 11 a.m., I got, a good 6 hours to fill,
That's good. It's like you're hustling in that way. It's like you're doing these other things to stay occupied, and the real estate was as a result of you living in Houston, right?
Yeah. Well, uh, when I lived in LA, after I bought my house, um, my brother and I became very interested in buying a property, fixing it up, and selling it.
Right.
Now, some people call that flipping. I had no idea what flipping was, but we were just like, so we bought a house in my hometown, Grass Valley, and it was right on Main Street. No garage, no parking, just this old house, and we fixed it up. And this was right when that real estate boom was happening in the early 2000s, and these two ladies one day asked if they could check out the house we were working on. So they came in, walked around. They said, "We want to buy it." And we were like, "Really? Okay." Like, so we gave them a funny price, and they took it. Like, they didn't think twice. And yeah, so that kind of started that. What I would do is I would fly up every weekend. I'd fly from Burbank to Sacramento, help my brother get everything going on the house. My brother's a very skilled construction carpenter guy.
Mhm.
I am not, but I'm not afraid to get dirty. I tear shit out and, go to the dump. I do I'm basically his assistant when we would do these things.
Right.
So, but yeah, so we had this chunk of money. We decided to 1031 it into another property. So that's where the Houston, the Texas thing came in, was that we just decided we want to build a mobile home park.
Right.
We couldn't do it in California. So we went there to do it. So yeah, bought a piece of property. It took us a few years to get it going, but yeah, we did it.
That's great.
So yeah, that was a fun. So yeah, I actually left LA at that in 2006 and went to Houston, and I thought everything was going to fall apart in my voiceover life, that I'd never work again. And that's not the case. I still got work, and still kept contacts throughout the country, and was able to still maintain a living doing voiceover even from Houston.
Why did you feel that way before your move to Houston, that you felt that like you were in like a bit of a rough patch with voiceover?
Because there was an incident that had happened, um, and it's my fault. I'll take blame for it. But what happened was, when I was with the Tischerman agency, and Steve Tischerman, who was the agent there, he was very adamant about actors being in a contract with him. Some agencies don't care, but Steve wanted you in a contract. I was talking to other voiceover actors, and some were saying, you got to check out William Morris, or, check out ICM. And so my contract was up, and Steve was selling the agency to some of the other agents there. I was out of contract. So I sent a demo over to William Morris first, and they were interested. So I went in and had my interview, and they're like, yeah, we'd like you to come aboard. And I remember, I said, do we sign a contract or anything? Like, no, we'll see how it goes. We'll just see how it goes, Okay. And I thought, well, shit, man, I don't have a contract at William Morris. If I leave Tischerman to go to William Morris, then I have a contract. If they don't like me, then what do I do? Well, I had also sent out a demo to ICM, and they also called me. So I went in to interview there, and they really liked me, and they wanted me to come on. And they said, who are you with right now? I said, oh, I'm with William Morris. They're like, oh, you can tell them that you're coming over to ICM. They're used to it. And so I said, okay. I said, what, do we do contract? Or they're like, no contract. We just, see how it goes, So by that time, I was in my head, and I was like, shit, I don't have a contract anywhere. So what I was doing was, I was going to auditions at William Morris. I was going to auditions at ICM. I was going to auditions at Tischerman. Not in a contract. I didn't violate any contract, but somebody found out about it. And I really had just paralysis analysis. I couldn't make a decision on who to go with.
Right.
And somebody, I think it was a casting director, that had kind of ratted me out on that. I won't say her name, but
oh wow.
But what happened was, yeah, they all called me on the same day, basically, and said, we can't believe you would do that. It's, and to me, it wasn't like I was I wasn't trying to do anything bad. I just couldn't make a decision. And the idea of not being in a contract anywhere really scared me. And so, yeah, I got let go by all three of them on the same day.
Wow.
And so I was like, shit, what am I going to do? I mean, voiceover is kind of like my thing here. And I made a split-second decision. I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to go to Texas.
Yeah.
Do something there.
Change the scenery, and just, just have.
Yeah. So that's what I did. I went there. I sold my house in LA. Perfect timing, like top of the market. Right. Went to Texas, and yeah, bought a nice little suburban house, and we worked on that mobile home park and did a couple of other projects. I mean, we opened a donut shop there. We did I did traffic for 2 weekends at a radio station.
Really?
There. Yeah. But it sucked. That was like a shitty job. That was like, it was too regimented. They wanted to monitor your bathroom time. And
wow.
It was just like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm not a child. So, but yeah, that was a great adventure. So I spent 5 years in Houston, and I don't regret that. It was a great experience. I love Texas. I think it's a great can-do kind of place. You can get anything done. But yeah, the voiceover, I had an agent there, but also at that time, the connection was ISDN. So I had the codec for ISDN. I had a ISDN line installed in my house, and I was still able to do jobs from LA clients that I still had, or people that still liked working with me, and all over. I mean, I had Florida, a bunch of states. So while I wasn't getting the caliber of jobs I was getting in LA, I was still working, and I was still pretty happy about that.
Yeah,
So
that's good. And
yeah,
I feel like your intentions were good when you were like just because you didn't have a set contract with three of them, so it's like it's just it's hard for me to see their side of it when you just wanted to make sure you had something solidified.
yeah, yeah, and other like New York, it's not uncommon to have more than one agent there.
Yeah,
LA is very much like you have one agent, and that's that for for voiceover. Um, yeah, I mean, I wasn't trying to. I mean, I didn't. What could I possibly do except do an audition twice?
right,
I mean, there was nothing. There's nothing I wouldn't. I didn't have state secrets. I didn't have like proprietary William Morris information or ICM information. It wasn't like that. I just think sometimes agents. It's funny because the agents, the one at ICM that got that left the nastiest voicemail on my, calling me like disloyal and all
oh
that.
wow,
It's so funny because he left ICM to start his own agency. So it's like, well, you guys everybody leaves for a better opportunity.
yeah,
There's no loyalty. Uh, I don't know. It was crazy.
yeah, that
But I mean, it was my fault. I can't, I own it.
right, yeah, it's that's strange for him to leave you that kind of a voicemail and get angry at you though, when it's like it's I feel like it's innate for anyone, like you said, to better themselves and chase the best opportunity for their career. But yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. And then I thought, too, from an ego perspective too, like, at that point, ICM was like top dog VO agency in the world. And it was like, damn, yeah, like that's pretty good. Like look where I get to, roll into every day and do auditions. That was awesome.
right,
But wasn't meant to be.
yeah, yeah. Why the donut shop? I was curious about that. Like, do you have like a favorite type of donut, by the way? I wanted to ask you that too.
I do. And you can't, very few donut shops make these, but it's just a plain cake glazed. A lot of them do just do plain cake, not
Yeah.
glazed. They're just a plain cake with glaze. And I wish more donut shops would do that, but they don't.
Oh wow.
But yeah, we that was again we did a lot of work on this mobile home park, and once all of the homes were in and things were running, we had a manager that lived on site that was running it. My brother and I were again looking for something else to do because it wasn't consuming our entire day anymore.
Right.
So we've always loved donuts, and we just thought, let's do it. Let's do a donut shop. And um, I think we were the definitely the only Caucasians in that area doing a donut shop. It is uh, a lot of it. A lot of donut shops in the Houston area are Cambodian families, and they've got a lock on that
Oh
market.
wow.
But my brother met a really nice guy who sold equipment, and he said, "Okay, I'll teach you how to make donuts." So my brother went and kind of apprenticed with this guy. Um, he was very generous to my brother, and we bought the equipment from him. Of course, that was kind of maybe a business thing. He thought he could train him and sell the equipment to him,
Yeah.
but he was a cool guy. He taught my brother some tricks, and we formulated our own proprietary blend of flour, and yeah, it was an interesting experience. So, but then I quickly found that was like a job,
Yeah. Right.
and I did not love that part of it because, getting up at 3 in the morning, and, you got to go to bed at 7, 8, like I started to feel like I was in prison because I was like, shit, I can't, this is not, I like my day I like to be busy, but I don't want to be locked in
Just
somewhere.
making
You
donuts.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. So we ended up selling it. We ended up selling it and getting out of it. But um, another another reason we had made a miscalculation on this donut shop because in Texas, you've been to Texas,
Never been, but I would love to go.
so my brother and I were raised vegetarian, so our parents are vegetarian. We don't eat meat. We don't partake in meat stuff at all. But donut shops in Texas, they make these kolaches, and it's like a dough with a sausage in it. And so um, I had never eaten a kolache myself, but we decided we were going to make kolaches, but vegetarian, to sell in the donut shop. Well, I bought these Boca brand sausages, which are breakfast sausages. We'd roll them up and we put jalapeno and cheese in there, and they were really good. Like I thought, these are good. These are good. Like kolaches are not bad.
Yeah.
Well, people would come in and try these kolaches, and they'd be like, "These aren't kolaches." But what I didn't know is that they don't use a breakfast sausage. They use more of like a hot dog type sausage in there. I guess it's just anyway. We got it totally wrong. Our kolaches were awful by Texas standards, but it was funny. There was a guy who was from Kansas who loved these kolaches because he had never had a real kolache. He thought ours were awesome. Like he'd come in and buy them by the dozen.
He didn't have
Like
like a
these are
basis for the original recipe.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
right, yeah. So to him, these were great.
Yeah.
So
I imagine
a little miscalculation.
right. I imagine vegan cooking and vegan baking must be tough in that area where there's such a passion for meat and cooking with meat.
Yeah, it was. Texas is definitely a meat. There's a lot of barbecue, a lot of. If you meet people in your neighborhood and they want to invite you over for a barbecue, and you're like, I'll bring my own stuff. So we'd always bring our own veggie burgers, or
Yeah.
you know,
I I went through a
but
phase where I was vegan. Um and I jumped in like from eating meat all the time straight to vegan.
wow.
And it was after I saw a documentary called What the Health.
Oh
And
yes,
and I think that documentary really shocked a lot of people into veganism. Uh for me, I feel like it really helped my cooking, like my cooking skills,
really, yeah,
because like I felt like I was like this scientist in the kitchen where I was taking cashews and turning it into cheese, and like
yes.
it really like I surprised myself at times as to how good certain vegan dishes were.
Yeah, no, that's true. You're what you said about being a scientist in there is very true. When you're cooking, when you're having to make these alternatives, now there's debate as to whether or not that's good for you. Whatever, okay, but the fact is, yeah, you do have to be very creative in how you do some of these things. To make your own vegan cheese, like you said, you're blending the cashews, you're doing the process. Like it's work, and it's debatable as to whether it's worth it for some people. But you know, did you find you had good results physically, or did you feel
You
better?
know, I never got that surge of energy that others were telling me about. And in the end, I folded and I just went back to like my regular diet of just eating meat and stuff. But I mean, I felt like it's tough because I did feel good health wise because I was working out consistently at the time. But maybe it is one of those things where it's not like a one size fits all type of thing for everyone. Certain people will
Sure.
probably feel better in with a vegan diet, but then others it won't work, or it won't make a difference.
Yeah, it may depend on your level of health going into it, and if you're reasonably healthy going in, it may not be like, you know, may not you just may not feel any difference.
Yeah.
If you're really unhealthy going in, maybe you might feel it.
Yeah.
It's possible. I mean, who knows? I know there's so much argument and debate on that. I just like we were raised that way, so meat's never been like it's just off the table, out of my mind. I never think of fast food. I don't. That's never an option. It's just not in my head.
Yeah.
Don't care about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't. I mean, I don't care if people eat it. Yeah, it's not.
You mentioned in a blog post how much you loved being able to voice do a voice role for San Pellegrino. Um,
Oh yeah.
were there any other like voice roles that made you feel that same feeling, like just super excited and happy to do?
Yeah. Starbucks. So I got to do the first Starbucks TV ads, the first ones that they did, and I was really excited because I was a big Starbucks fan at that time, and I was so stoked to get that gig because that was like, I'd go to Starbucks almost every day when I lived in LA, and I don't know, I just felt really proud of that. Like, I got that job. Like, I really wanted it when I went into the audition. Rarely do I go into an audition and be like, I mean, I want every job I audition for, but like that one was like really, I don't know, I felt really passionate about that, and getting it was just great. It was easy for me to love the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
had Dolores Rogers on my show, who's a voice actress as well. And it's interesting to get different takes from different voice actors with their mindset going into an audition. Because she said, like, she goes into auditions, like, knowing she's got it, just knowing it right away. But it's got to be, it's interesting to just get those different takes from people going in, you know?
So I think one thing I learned from my dad was you just show up, do your best. Of course, you want every job. I have no idea what they're looking for, and they probably don't even really know what they're looking for either.
Yeah.
And when the audition is done, you never think about it again unless you get the job. So my dad used to go into auditions. He'd have his sides, his paper sides, and he'd come out and he'd crumple it up and throw away the sides. Like that was
Oh,
it.
wow.
It's done. Never think about it again unless you get it.
That's a good mindset, I would say, right? So you don't just get so in your own head about the audition and everything.
Yeah, I had a good friend who lived with me for a while in LA when I first moved down there, and he would do auditions and he would cry because he didn't hear back from them and just be like, I thought I did a good job. It really was almost debilitating for
Mm.
him. And it was, I know other actors who've had that experience too. And so I thought, my dad's right. Just do it and forget it and move on. Like tomorrow's another day. And with voiceover, your auditions are so prolific, or they should be. I audition, several times a day. And so you just can't think about it. You just do it and move on.
Is there one near miss role that you auditioned for that you like really wish you got?
Um, there are gigs that I've auditioned for that were pretty high profile, like being the voice of the Tennis Channel,
Oh, nice.
which I totally choked in that audition and did horrible. To me, I always wanted to do promos. Like promos were because they're very lucrative, and um, I was lucky enough to do things like I did some promos for ESPN and National Geographic, but network promo, like I had gone in a few times when I lived in LA to do network promo auditions, and you go into, you drive into Warner Brothers, you drive into on the Fox lot, like you're going in to the movie studio to do these auditions, and yeah, those ones I really, really wanted those, but I never got like the voice of, NBC comedy, or, I think that those to me that would be awesome to do something like that. Yeah. But I've had the opportunity. I've gone in, auditioned, just never booked them.
You mentioned the Chicago trip being a bucket list thing for you. Would landing like a promo network role be like a bucket list thing, would you say, for you?
Yes, of course. Yeah, that would be fantastic. So one of the things, like, I don't have, not being in LA is the center of the voiceover universe. It just is. And if you're not there and you don't have an agent that's, if you're not part of an agency there, you're just not getting those
Yeah.
opportunities. My main agent is in San Francisco now, and I still have agents throughout the country, but the real juicy opportunities, and I saw this when I was at William Morris and ICM and Tisherman, that's where those opportunities are flowing to.
Right.
And if you're not part of those agencies, you're just not getting those opportunities.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be a wonderful thing to be able to get one of those network promos, but I just don't get the opportunity to audition for them. And I know vocally, like I can do them. I'm very capable, but maybe there's some complacency in me. I have not pursued trying to get an LA agent in quite some time, and um, I go back and forth. I have a pretty good life. Like I maybe it's I don't know. I just I feel pretty good about where I am and what I do each day, and maybe next month I'll send a demo out
You never know, right?
to an
We'll
LA
see.
agent. Try to get
We'll see
somebody.
if anything comes of it.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, but I don't. I have no desire to move back down there and be in that rat race. I don't. I don't enjoy it. I think as I get older, I love LA. LA is a fantastic place to be. It really is. But there's just too many people.
Hmm,
There's just too many people there, and I don't like the travel. I just know it's all the typical stuff. I just don't like that.
that's fair.
And especially now, like I went down there for New Year's to see the in-laws, and it's kind of a bummer to see what's become of Hollywood. The homeless situation.
Hmm,
There's a lot of decay that's happening right now, and it's a little unfortunate.
yeah,
It's sad. I mean, you see it in every city, and every city's dealing with this right now. I just, especially on the West Coast, San Francisco,
yeah.
total shit show. Downtown LA, it's just ridiculous.
Oh man,
So,
yeah. And what would you say is some advice you'd offer to someone that's trying to get into voice acting?
um, well, I think the most important thing, and we kind of touched on this already, is being persistent. Is not taking. Well, you take no for an answer, but you still try again. You just keep coming back at people with auditions or with inquiries. Trying to get an agent or trying to make inroads with a studio. Just keep at it.
Right?
You
Yeah.
know, be a little. Be a polite pest,
Right.
because you don't want to be a jerk. Just be persistent. If somebody says, "Oh, not right now. We don't need anybody with your vocal category," things change. You know, Next month they might need somebody in your category. So you just keep doing it. Keep
Yeah.
doing it. Keep doing it.
Especially,
And practicing.
yeah,
You know.
absolutely. And as you said, be respectful too. Maybe they'll remember you, and they will reach out for when they do need you for a certain role. So
Yeah, yeah. You've got to be gracious, and whenever you get a job, just be very thankful, and um, you know, be polite. No need to be an asshole in a session.
right,
Um, yeah, why would you do that? Why would you do that? It's not that kind of it's just not that kind of a gig. We're so lucky when we get a voiceover job. We are so lucky. It's one of those things that keeps you from having to have that 9 to 5, or it gets you further away from that if that's your goal. That was always my goal. I never wanted to work in an office. I never wanted to do anything where I was, had
yeah,
handcuffs somewhere. So to me, I'm very respectful of any voiceover opportunity I get, because it's just keeps me on the path that I'm on.
yes,
You know,
yes. You got to
yeah,
be like Arthas before he became evil. Just be the
that's
good
right.
Arthas in all these roles, and you never know who you're going to meet along the way. Who they might be like an Elizabeth to to this person, where they will steer them in the right direction, and you never
Yeah,
know.
absolutely.
So,
Yeah, because if I was an asshole back then, and Elizabeth may not have taken the time to help me.
right.
She's like, "Ah, that kid's got an attitude."
People can sense
So
that, like, a good vibe from others. They could sense that respectfulness. So, you know,
yeah, and being sincere when somebody helps you, and sincerely thanking them, and just or being sincerely curious about what it is that she did, like that was like a very sincere uh, curiosity that I had.
right.
Like, how do you do this? Like, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
And
Yeah. What's your day like? How do you like? What do you do? You get up and you go to the studio, and like it was all a mystery to me.
yeah,
You know, and ask, and not being afraid to ask people questions too. Like that's another thing.
right.
And a lot of I mean, I guess it's been my experience. Most people have been pretty gracious, and you know, so maybe most people are. I always give people the benefit of the doubt,
Sure.
but you know.
Absolutely. Um, well, Justin, we have hit our time, and I just want to thank you so much for taking the time tonight to do this. And if you want to plug your website so everyone can see where to find you, by all means.
Yeah, it's just my name, justingross.com, and that's how people can find
Yep.
me. And so, yeah,
They're not going to find you on Facebook or Instagram. So,
they won't find me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm not selling classes. I'm not doing any. I'm not trying to. I can't do that. That's never felt
right.
good. So I just, you know, if people have questions about voiceover, reach out. I always answer. So
Great. And thank you to everyone for watching or listening to this episode. Don't forget to rate and review the show, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.